This is the England 11 that is going to bring football home at Euro 2024. Right, we're starting off with when England drew with America in Qatar in 2022 as an example of a group game where Gareth Southgate's trying to get maximum points but also limit any potential losses and allow England the momentum to get out of the group in first place. There's a few observations for me that we can learn about going into my 11 for the group stage games, particularly against Denmark and Slovenia, when obviously a few more players are back and fully fit. The first one is Rice and Bellingham. We talk about this kind of Rice and Bellingham effect where can they play in a double pivot? Can they play alongside each other deep and be a little bit more conservative than they are for club? And I think they absolutely can. We saw it against America where it was a very, very tight affair. America's midfield actually got to grips with England. It was very, very good. England didn't play well in the game, but they kept it very, very tight. Very similar in the Euro 2021 group stages when England drew with Scotland. Obviously, as an England fan, I was watching it thinking, this is absolute dross. This is boring. We're going to get smashed whenever we get into the round of 16. And it was actually one of those kind of classic Gareth Southgate maneuvers where he just makes sure we get out of the group. And whatever you say about Gareth Southgate, he's got an impeccable record of getting out of the group. You know, no weird kind of Euro 2016 kind of scraping through or Capello in South Africa. Gareth Southgate's great at getting out of the group. And I know that's a bit of for a lot of England fans, that isn't enough. But he did it with a double pivot of Rice and Bellingham. The interesting one is Mason Mount in that free role. He was rotated in and out with Phil Foden throughout the group stages. Phil Foden trusted ahead of Mount to start against France later on in the tournament. We'll look at that at 11 as well. But Mason Mount in that free role, which says a lot that actually Gareth Southgate can trust someone to play as a number 10, a normalised number 10. It was a 4-2-3-1 against America, which obviously means that you had that kind of classic the David Silva role, if you will, that kind of classic Juan Mata at Chelsea, that classic number 10 that plays centrally, influences both wingers, influences and services the striker and links up with the midfielder. Not a left-sided midfielder tucking in or anything like that, or inside forward, but a number 10 that sits in the middle of the park and influences things like in a kind of classic way. And Mason Mount was doing that in these group stage games, particularly against America. It says a lot that Gareth Southgate actually can revert back to that system. In the group stages, we might see Phil Foden trusted, or even Cole Palmer with a similar role. So this is my 11 to play a large part of the group stage games. Obviously, the first one, Trent coming in. Now, Kyle Walker will be trusted against Serbia because of the injuries to John Stones. I'm talking about a little bit more of a look at the group stage games from a macro perspective. I think Trent will be trusted to rotate in there with Kyle Walker. So maybe Kyle Walker's fresh for the knockouts. And Trent, we can see what he's like. He can tuck into midfield a little bit more against the likes of Denmark, a little bit more against the likes of Slovenia. So I think out of one of those games, particularly Denmark or Slovenia, I think Trent will come in at right back. And look at the back line that I've put in there. Kieran Trippier, yes, inverted as a left back, but he is defensively very, very conservative. And on his day, he's a fantastic defender. And the pace in the back line is very interesting because ultimately, if you're going to be a bit more attacking, we're taking three strikers. There's a world where I see Watkins and Kane potentially playing against each other if we're playing with each other if we're attacking a game, if we need a goal. Then the pace in the back line is fantastic. This is how I'd set up. Trent's pace is fantastic. Maybe defensively not the best, but his pace is fantastic. Guehi and Joe Gomez, absolutely huge. I think Joe Gomez's role in this England side is being completely underrated for his experience, for his versatility. I think he's got a massive role to play, and I think the back line makes a lot of sense. The second thing to note is that Phil Foden's playing as two attacking midfielders. I think you can do this. I think you can kind of create this kind of press where Guardiola likes to do it. It's kind of the five. It's almost like a five. The two wingers, the striker, the two attacking midfielders press all parts of the pitch. And I think Phil Foden, when you look at what Mason Mount was doing at Chelsea at points, yes, he had a very, very good time at Chelsea. That's what got him into some of the starting positions for England in the last World Cup. Phil Foden can do that, link up with Jude Bellingham at a higher level, in my opinion. On the ball, he's going to be smarter. We're going to keep the ball for a higher sort of average amount of possession than Mason Mount would have kept it, in my opinion. I think Phil Foden's far smarter at keeping the ball, keeping possession high. But then off the ball as well, I think he works so hard. I know Mason Mount's big quality is work rate, but Phil Foden as well. So this is where I think there's a lot of trust in Phil Foden and a lot of trust in Anthony Gordon as well. I actually don't see a world where it's anyone else starting on the left wing for most of the games in the group. I think Anthony Gordon will be trusted massively to have pace because of our issues at left back, especially until Luke Shaw's fully fit. it'll be Anthony Gordon doing a lot of the work up and down the pitch. Don't underestimate the presence of a winger to kind of stop attacks and stop counter-attacks. I think Anthony Gordon will just, he'll land in Germany and he'll play out of his skin up and down. I think Anthony Gordon's role in this England side is absolutely huge. I think something like that 11, obviously there'll be a lot of rotation throughout the group stages, allows us enough attacking impetus to go out, get goals, attack games, and get out of the group in first. This is the 11 that lost to France in the quarterfinals of World Cup 2022. Some interesting observations. I almost forgot that Jordan Henderson played in this 11. I actually didn't think he did a bad job either. Him and Kyle Walker kind of doubled up on Mbappe. And there's going to be a lot of connection between what Jordan Henderson did for Gareth Southgate, particularly in 2018 World Cup as well. How he had this kind of role of leadership and work rate off the ball. And it will be a commentary on who has a similar role, because Gareth Southgate's a creature of habit. He looks at Anthony Gordon in a similar way of how he nurtured Raheem Sterling in the 2018 World Cup, for example. I think very similar with Kobbie Mainoo, maybe similar to how someone like Jesse Lingard, for example, had a great tournament in the World Cup for England as well. So Jordan Henderson, you look at it, and I think there's one standout name where I think I hope he earmarks him to be that Jordan Henderson replacement. But it's interesting. It was 4-3-3. It wasn't fives. It wasn't 3-5-2, 3-4-3 or whatever. It was still 4-3-3 against France. We bottled the penalty. Harry Kane bottled the penalty, no question about it. But ultimately, we did perform very, very well. Bukayo Saka, playing right wing, had a great tournament. Jude Bellingham was so much younger, 2 years younger than he is now, and he's still super young. So it says a lot that actually we lost to France. I wasn't happy with Harry Kane bottling the penalty, but we did show up for ourselves. We did look very, very good, and it was in a 4-3-3. And there isn't much change. I think Luke Shaw will be fit by the time we do play France. If we get to semi-finals, if we're lucky enough to get to semi-finals, Harry Maguire, I think Joe Gomez, Harry Maguire, I think they can offer certainly similar kind of defensive capabilities. And Kyle Walker and John Stones will be fully fit going into that game. So I think there's a lot of similarities from how we lost to France 2022, and there's an opportunity there for revenge. And this is my 11 that predominantly plays against big sides in the knockout stages. I don't know how we're going to get out of the group. There's a world we can play Portugal early. There's a world we can play Hungary, who obviously beat us recently in the Nations League, and Germany as well. So look, England are going to get out of the group. If you can come third with loads of points and still get out, Euro 2024, the Euro format is built for sides to get out of the group and have more nations playing football. That's what it's all about. So England get out of the group. But in terms of knockout football, how we apply ourselves, how pragmatic we are, this is the 11 that I think would be best equipped for doing that. Because the back line speaks for itself. Luke Shaw will be fully fit, hopefully at that point in the campaign. And I think for me, I put more trust in Joe Gomez. I don't know enough about his injuries and kind of his form going into the tournament, but he's in the squad. He's got the most success out of anyone in that back line except for the Man City lads. Champions League winner, Premier League winner. I trust him more than Mark Gahey. And I don't like Lewis Dunk, to be completely honest, in terms of his role in this squad. I would have had Branthwaite all day long. I think maybe Branthwaite starts ahead of Joe Gomez. That's how highly I rank Branthwaite. So Joe Gomez can come in. He can be versatile. He's positionally incredibly aware. You have to be. If you can play left back at a high level, if you can play right back at a high level, and then centre back alongside Virgil van Dijk, you have to be positionally switched on for things like counter-attacks. And I think Joe Gomez, for me, is the priority. But the midfield is interesting. There'll be people that watch. Maybe it's Kobbie Mainoo midfield for them. Maybe it's Conor Gallagher. I think there's an argument for both. But for me, there's a great opportunity here where you swap out Jordan Henderson essentially and bring in who replaces Jordan Henderson. And I think Adam Wharton can do a lot of the legwork, and he's a fresher player than obviously Jordan Henderson was in 2022. But then what you gain, instead of looking at it as this kind of extra man in midfield that kind of has to do a job and kind of allow Bellingham to do this, allow Rice to do that, why not be a little bit more glass half full? Why not be a little bit more, what can we benefit? How can we influence the football match when we actually have the ball? And I think Adam Wharton gives us an extra 5-10 minutes on the ball throughout the match. So he does all that legwork off of it, and I think he's smarter on the ball. I think we keep it a little bit savvier. Kobbie Mainoo's fantastic. He's electric. He's box to box. He's got a great eye for a goal. The finish in the FA Cup final. I just don't see how you can play Kobbie Mainoo, Rice and Bellingham. If I'm wrong, I think all three can bomb forward. All three can score goals from midfield. All three are kind of CMs in that classic sense. And I think Adam Wharton is a true CDM. He's a Michael Carrick. And how many times did we bemoan England managers for not trusting Scholes, not trusting Michael Carrick. And I think Adam Wharton has to be starting these big games. I know it's crazy. He was playing against Rotherham this time last year at the start of the Championship season for Blackburn. But I think his time has come. Euros and World Cup tournaments are littered with players that have got very, very little experience. Dare I say, Wayne Rooney, 2004. And the final observation for my 11 has to be Phil Foden, left wing. You could sit there actually at home if you're watching this video, let me know, because he was poor against France left wing. He came off, I think it was for Mason Mount, who actually influenced the game massively for England. And at left wing, Phil Foden with Adam Wharton in midfield is a far better player, in my opinion. He gets a lot more service. I think the midfield becomes a lot more creative. And you could almost pat that midfield and treat it like a 4-5-1 as opposed to 4-3-3 and allow Foden to come deep. Obviously, you got that kind of defensive cover of Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Adam Wharton ahead of Luke Shaw, who's back fully fit, and allow Phil Foden this free role. If it doesn't work, you've got so many options in terms of Eze, in terms of someone like Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, Conor Gallagher. But for me, Phil Foden, you have to trust him at some point to do something special for England. I know it's over 30 games for England now where arguably he hasn't stood out. But I honestly think Adam Wharton, in a very similar way to Rodri, obviously different quality at the moment in terms of where they are in their career. I think Adam Wharton services Phil Foden far better than the midfield with Jordan Henderson, who can barely, he's not the best passer of the ball in the world, Jordan Henderson. I think that midfield services Phil Foden far better, and then Phil Foden in turn services the likes of Saka. I think he'll be crossing towards Saka, crossing into Harry Kane, who'll be scoring tons of goals. And that's how I think it works out. That's how I think England have got the best chance of succeeding at Euro 2024. Let me know your 11s down below and how far England will get, and I'll see you very, very soon.